Hey Ninjas, this week's show is going to be a little different because I'm here at Podcast Movement 2017 in Anaheim. We're going to bring you our anticipated show with Dr. Rachel Watson next week. Meanwhile, please stand by for the Multimedia Ninja Podcast, episode 65.
Hello again and welcome to the Multimedia Ninja Podcast, where it's all about surviving and thriving in the digital convergence. My name is Bradford Rogers, and I'll be interviewing some multimedia ninjas who are making things happen in their respective fields and sharing tips, tools, and insights for multimedia artists and content creators. As always, you can find show notes at themultimedianinja.com. This week,
live from the Podcast Pavilion, Abrupt Audio's Ant McGinley.
as you may know, in this podcast series, my friends and I will be talking about all things multimedia, including creativity, shaping your ideas, and how to be more productive doing it, regardless of what kind of content you're creating. We have got an exciting episode for you today, so what do you say we just let's get to it?
Hey there, kids. Welcome to Anaheim for this week's edition of the Multimedia Ninja Podcast. I am tickled stinkless this week to have a very special guest with us, all the way from London, England, Mr. Anthony McGinnis.
Thank you very much.
Ant.
Yeah, it's McGinley, but
sorry.
it happens all the time. And
I had a Guinness last night.
The family's Irish, so it works. And hey, so I'm a vegan. Guinness just went vegan, which is great for us Irish guys. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, it's great to be here, and I love the flute. I just love the sound of it, and I don't think I've ever been this close to somebody who playing the flute. It's an amazing, just to be at the end of the tube is an amazing place to be.
I thought you were going to say that needs to take a shower, but no, I did that. I did that this week, whether I need to or not. But you have a unique perspective that since we talk to multimedia ninjas every week, you actually have a background as, among other things, a cruise ship DJ.
Yeah.
So first let me tell folks, you have the On the Left Side podcast is one about soccer, not politics.
Yeah, we do soccer. It's very much like, I think the best way to do it is that there's a lot of politics shows actually in a similar vein. So if you think of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, it's very similar to that format, but about the week in soccer and global soccer. And that's one of the shows we do. We have Mixed Martial Arts, which is a terrible name because people go, is that MIX or MICK? But it's MIC because the guy that hosts it is called Mick. He's a big deal in martial arts. But these are the mistakes that we learned, and we kind of wear them as badges of honor.
Right.
We have another couple, Jolly Good Show, which is a comedy sketch show. Get Happy, which is 3 comedians trying different techniques to get happy. We've got our own podcast about podcasting called the How to Podcast Podcast, which is still quite new and we're learning. And what we're trying to do with that is every time we interview someone and do a bit, we're trying to learn that lesson and then almost modularly build the episode up. So if we have a guy who does like a great musical intro, we'll then maybe incorporate that into our next show. That's what we try and do with that.
Like that.
Yeah.
So I actually have a segment I do every week with my guests, and it's called What the Heck Are You Doing? Where we ask our guests what tip, tool, technique, hardware, software, philosophy, what have you, is rocking hard for you today, this week, this month, this year, etc. So what, if you had to call it, what would that be for you at the moment?
Oh, wow. That's a great question as well. I think here, what I'm doing is just saying hello to people. Yes. And what's really nice as well is like when we met and you were queuing to check in and I'd already been here a few hours. And I walked past and I recognized you from some of the posts online and the show. But I had the exact same energy I'd had with a couple of other people, like in the bar the night before when there was hardly anybody here. And I just walked past and you do that thing as guys, you go, hey, you just kind of don't do that thing. But there was like an extra sense of energy. So we did that, we went, hey. And then I went, I
spun around.
Yeah, exactly. And you go, wait a second, fella. You're a podcast movement. And that's it. It's great. And there is a real energy about everybody here. And I know some people have difficulty with the comfort zone side of things, but honestly, I would say the thing, it's working for me right here now, but it will work whatever you're doing, whether it's podcasting or you're building a website or you're just creating something that you want to share with the world. You can put it out on Facebook, you can put it on Twitter, you can do all that, but there's nothing like that personal connection with someone, right? And it doesn't have to be a business card, it doesn't have to be a handshake, but we meet, we have a little chat, we get on, and just because we've made a connection, I know you're going to go and listen to my shows now, just because you go, I like that guy, I want to see what he's about. And you might listen to them and go, nice guy, but awful work. Yeah, and that's fine, because that's what it is.
No, I know that won't be the case.
But
right.
you've done that, and you've made that. And otherwise, if you're just scrolling through Apple Podcasts and you see that, you might go, not for me, and scroll past it. But you might scroll through it in a few months and go, oh God, I met that guy, and I never listened.
Yep.
And then and so I think that there is a personal connection, and there's something about, even though we're in this world now, it's just so digital, I think more than ever we crave that personal connection. So if you can just get away from behind your laptop, and I know it's difficult for some people because of where they're located, because of their work, because of what it is that they're doing. But, one way you can do that in a short space of time is an event like this. So it may be expensive for you to get there. I mean, it's cost me a lot to get from London over here, and then the flights, the hotel, even before the delegate fee.
Right.
But you know what? I kind of feel like I've got every single penny of my money's worth, and we've only just started.
Right. Well, I would say that's a winning call, and that reminds me of our other segment that I can't forget, which I'll get to right after this musical interlude. Alrighty then, and that leads us to this week's segment of Winners and Losers. This week, certainly my guest is a winner for being here. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. But also, I want to thank Steve Stewart for doing this, along with TalkShoe and Shure Mics for doing this thing. And yes, indeed, we want to thank TalkShoe for sponsoring the live recording of our podcast. They are a unique website for people to participate in live interactive podcasts called Community Calls at TalkShoe.com. And also, my favorite here, if you're looking and you are a recording person or a multimedia ninja, here I'll point to his since I'm behind the boom, but we Shure microphones. This is the famous SM7 mic, used on Michael Jackson's Thriller, by the way.
Oh, wow.
And although it is a dynamic mic, actually dynamic mics are better for podcasting and radio because they reject all the crowd noise like we have here.
Yeah, there's a lot of noise going back on. And you know what? This looks like, it would be the podcast of choice for a ninja.
Yes.
It's got the sleek black moves, and it almost looks like, there's a secret switch somewhere and it turns into some kind of assassination tool.
Right. It's a grenade or something. But you can check out many of their fine products, and actually I won't get it out of my bag down here, but I travel with my Shure Beta SM58, which is the classic ball mic that you see on so many live stages, because it is robust, sounds awesome on the boat and anywhere, and anyway I bring it, so I'm not just making it up. I love Shure, and you can go see them at shure.com, and that's SHURE.com. But I digress a little bit. I want to get back with how you got from cruise ship DJ to doing the podcasting.
Oh wow, okay.
If it's a straight line, or even if it's not.
Well, I suppose I look at it now, and like anything in life, when you've got the perspective and you can look back over a period of 10 years, you can see that it all kind of makes sense. Though I think at the time you kind of go, that's such a big change from what I was doing. So I had a really good career in radio in the UK.
I can see where that would be the case.
Yeah, so I was a producer at the BBC. I was also a presenter, and I left the BBC as a producer to take the opportunity to present, and that meant me moving around the country quite a lot. I think in 1 year I moved house 4 times in one calendar year for jobs, and I hate moving.
Yes.
I hate moving.
Yes.
And then I got my own morning show, which is, that's like getting a slot on an NFL team. That's just the way you could be. It's a small station, but it was the morning zoo.
Right.
And I did that for a year and a half, and that's intense. It's an intense job to do. People think, oh, you just do 4 hours a day, but you're in 2 hours before, you're then doing 4 or 5 hours after, and then you might get a nap, and then you do some kind of event or something in the evening, so you've got content for the next day.
Right.
And so I did that, and then I had a year of being fired, which happens quite a lot when you're in that job. So I got fired 3 times in a year, and kind of thought, I should try something different. So took some time out, lost some weight because I piled it on because my diet had been awful. And then a buddy of mine, who I actually make the On the Left Side podcast with, he's the presenter on that now. He sent me an email. I said, look, I've seen this job. They're looking for a DJ on a cruise ship. And I was like, I don't want to do that. But then, and this is me being a real cad and a bounder, I met a girl at a party who I really fancied. And she said, so what do you do? And I was like, well, I haven't DJ'd for a while, and I don't want to say I'm doing nothing because I'm trying to impress her. So I said, I've just applied for a job on a cruise ship, even though I hadn't. And it turned out that she worked for the company that had advertised the job. Oh. And she's like, oh, well, can you forward, make sure, I'll give you my email address, see it gets to me, and I'll put it at the top of the pile.
Nice.
And so I was like, oh, I have to apply now. Anyway, then a complete whirlwind happened. So I was living in Manchester at the time. 2 weeks later, I did a 4-hour trip down to Southampton for the interview. All-day interview audition. You go through, there's about 40 people. They cut people as you go through the day, different tasks. You do everything from like a bit of ballroom dancing to like hosting a game show, creating ideas, one-on-one talking with people just to test you under pressure. And then they said, okay, we'll be in touch. So I drove back home another 4 hours, woke up the next day a little bit tired. The phone rang and they said, we want to offer you the job, but we don't have a ship yet. I went, okay, that's fine, just let me know. And I knew it could be 3 or 4 months.
Right.
2 minutes later, they go, actually, what are you doing on Thursday? I queue a couple of hectic days flying around to different embassies to get visas, medicals. And then it all happened so quickly. I was on the way to the docks and suddenly realized I'd never seen a cruise ship. And I was about to go and live on one. And you know, a lot of people who live by the coast will have seen these huge things. I mean, you see them on TV, they look big, but when you're actually, like, it's docked and you're there, if you've been on one, they're behemoths.
Right. And
I was like, I've never been in one, and everybody that's going to be in my life for the next couple of years is inside this thing. And it was a great opportunity. I went around the world 2 or 3 times, been to so many countries. And I tell you what as well, if you run your own business and anybody ever comes to you, you're looking to employ, they worked on a cruise ship for more than 6 months, snap them up. Because you'll never meet anybody that has worked as hard or been as flexible or as dynamic.
Right.
Yeah.
And I understand the cruise line may owe you a day's pay.
So yeah, they do. So as you know, if you travel a bit, even if you're just flying across the country, you're changing time zones all the time. Now, as you travel the world, you gain hours every couple of days, and in some parts you'll gain half an hour, then you'll gain an hour, then you'll lose an hour depending which way the ship's going. So for a lot of cruises, you'll go out, you'll gain 2 hours, and then it'll turn around a week into it and then come back and you'll lose it. So it balances out. When you do a round-the-world cruise, which a lot of the companies do, it takes 3 months, and they'll usually send 2 ships out. One will go one way, one will go the other. So 2012, I joined a ship. It was the Oriana on a round-the-world cruise. And I joined them in Hong Kong. And so we're already quite a few hours ahead of GMT. And so we're heading round to Australia, and then up to Hawaii, then San Francisco, through the Panama Canal. And so as we go that way, we are trying to, how do they do this? Basically, if you go one way around, you lose a whole day, and if you go the other way around, you gain a whole day. And so this way of doing it, I basically had 2 March the 4ths, right? And it's this really bizarre thing. So you either have 2 March the 4ths, or you have a March the 3rd and then a March the 5th if you come in the other way. So, and I suddenly realised that when my paycheck came at the end of the day, right, I'd only been paid like for 1 March the 4th. And I was like, but I've done 2. You know, I've done 2 whole days work, and you're doing like 12, 13 hours when you're on these ships. And they were like, oh, no, but it balances out when you go back the other way. But they never put me on their ship, so they always sent me that way. So I kind of thought, I'm going to leave the company before they owe me more days. But that's a quirk of traveling around the world.
Right.
And, yeah, it's crazy.
Of course, I don't get paid at all for my traveling, so that's an extra bonus, I think. But I haven't seen them give us the high sign, so I wanted to ask you a couple other questions.
Sure.
I was asking about how you got into podcasting, but what is your favorite thing about podcasting?
You know what my favorite thing is? You know, I worked at a really high level in radio in the UK, and I worked with some amazing people, some real talents, some great producers, some great presenters, state-of-the-art equipment, some incredible events. But it's so constricted. There are things that you can do and things that you can't do, and that every time you go in, there's more things that you can't do, and there's things that change, and you've got to be considerate of it. And then I think radio is such a powerful medium; it's incredible, but it's almost wasted. I think people don't use it to its full extent, and there's reasons for that. There's commercial interest. People have got to make money. You've got to get an audience to justify that, and so you have all these theories that come in, and you know, people have audience selection of the music, and they change that. And you know, what people don't realise is even the really influential music DJs don't choose the music that's on their radio show, and that kind of doesn't make sense. And then when you come to move into the podcast environment, you know, you can do anything you want. And I work with a lot of people that I meet, and I go, you know what, this person isn't a traditional presenter. This person may have some kind of speech impediment, or they may have a very thick accent, or they may just have an odd way of talking. But if I see something in that person, I think, you know what, they have got an ability to draw things out of people or connect with listeners or whatever. I want them to come and work with us. But then I'm very careful that for all the good things that I think I have, I feel almost tarnished by radio. So when I bring people into podcasting, I try not to give them any rules. I just let them do it. And I let them do it, and I let them breathe, and I let them find their own voice. And I'll do that for maybe 20 episodes. And then I'll go...
Then bring the hammer down.
No, I won't put the hammer on. I'll just come along and I'll go, hey, try this. Or maybe what I'll do is I'll do an edit of the show which just takes that little bit out, which I didn't think was necessary. And that's the way I'll guide them. And you know what? You've got the time to do that within podcasting, because it's a great way to grow. And there's so much pressure. People are here, and you've got some amazing people that are making fortunes doing podcasting, which I think is a great thing, and it gives hope for us all that we can be millionaires and give it. But you know what? Then this will become your day job, and you'll be working hard at that. So be careful for what you wish for. Right? But the thing I would say is just enjoy it. And people get so worked up about, oh, well, what if I get it wrong, and what if nobody listens? You know what? I think if nobody listens, that's great. Like, we're here doing the show now. Okay, so we're doing it live. We're here at Podcast Movement. Obviously, this is going out a podcast that your audience is going to download and listen, and my audience will get it as well. But right now, although we're live, people are milling around. Nobody's really hanging on our every word, and looking at it, which is nice, because we could just be
F up all we want to.
We could just be. We're talking now very much as if we're just having a coffee in Starbucks over there, and that's the way it should be. You should have that relaxed fun, and really, I think things can be overcomplicated, and there's lots of stuff here about, you know, improving things. Everyone wants to get better, self-development, all that. But really, it's just talking. We're two guys talking on the radio, and that's it. You know, there's nothing. Nobody dies if we get things wrong. When I got my morning show, my best friend got his first full-time job as a paediatrician. Right. And we touch base every couple of weeks. I'd be like, Kevin, he's in Vancouver now. He's got a great clinic up there. But
hello,
I was like,
Kevin.
how's your week been? And he'd be like, oh, you know, I had to tell this family that their teenager was going to die. And then he's like, but then I had this other kid who's 7, who's been in and out of hospital their whole life, and I realised what's wrong with him, and no other doctor's seen that. And literally, I changed his meds, and he's 50% better already. You know, I'm like, that's amazing. And then and then I've just come out of clinic, and I delivered a baby who had the cord tangled around its neck, but both baby and mother are doing well. And I'm like, oh man, that's amazing. And he's like, so how's your week been? And I'm like, hey, I had the exclusive first play on the new Britney record. And you just think, you say that, and you go, oh my God, my life is meaningless. Like, if they have to evacuate the earth and there's only one seat left, I'm not getting on that thing, you know?
But it means something to somebody, so that's the important part.
It does. And you know what? So I did have an occasion where I met a lady who, she'd won a competition. And normally you just send the things out, but she says, can I come in and pick it up? I'm like, yeah, sure. It's always nice to meet people. And she goes, and this lady has a condition called lupus. I'm not sure if it's called the same thing over here. And she was talking to us, and she said, look, because my condition's so bad, I don't have to work. You know, there's benefits available to me there. She says, but I've got a young son, and I can earn more money if I work, and I want to give him the best life that I can. She says, but even though I've got that drive, that motivation, it's so hard for me to get up sometimes. She says, but so I have to thank you because you guys come on the radio when the alarm comes off. And sometimes you say something funny, but most of the time it's just because you're being an idiot or arguing with someone and bickering. And it makes me laugh. And I forget about the pain. And so suddenly she finds herself set up. And that, for that woman, that was the most difficult thing that she had. And that's, I mean, at the time we had a reach of about 150,000 people every morning on the show. So quite small, but significant. And I was like, wow, that's what one person we're having that impact with. So there could be another one or two people that something that we say brightens the day or comforts them. And so, there is a gift, and you have that with a podcast, the ability to reach and connect with people in a way like no other. And the voice can do that.
And in a way that I do the audio and video every week, which is a whole nother story. But there are things you can show people with the video, but there's a connection like straight into the brain with audio.
Seriously.
And my apologies to everyone whose brain I'm connecting straight into. But there's a whole different thing about it when you do the audio podcast.
And it's powerful.
I wanted to ask you too, what is your biggest challenge right now, podcasting wise?
My biggest challenge is trying to get more people to listen to podcasts in the UK, because I'm not saying that. I suppose one solution was I could just move everything over here and steal the American audience, but I have a lot of competition over here. But like there's something I'm trying to understand. It's one of the reasons why I'm here. Is there's a real high level of engagement in the US with the populace in terms of the number of people that listen to podcasts and engage with it. I mean, still, when you look at the surveys that they've done, it's still a relatively low figure of people that are aware of podcasts, of listening to podcasts. You still, like, certain surveys will come out and 40-50% know what a podcast is. Right? So, which is, it's still a relatively new thing, and it's still quite difficult to listen to. We're still not quite at the level that radio is, and that's where we need to be, where you press one button and it's on, and you press another button and it changes to a different station. That's why radio is, because it's the simplicity of it, and people know what it is. And at the minute, what I've got to do, I've got to get in, I've got to connect my Bluetooth to the car, right? I've got to open the app, I've got to and it's like, and then I'm late for my meeting.
Right.
So, whereas I could just get in the car and just hit the radio on. Now, obviously, I can listen to the radio through my phone, I can listen to YouTube, quality's so much better. But that's something we're missing. But obviously, you struggle with that in America, we struggle with that in the UK as well. But the percentage is so small, and because I've set up a company with Chris and a couple of other guys that work with us, and the teams that we have that make the shows, we're building this product, and the stuff we do is so good. And that's not me even blowing up my own trumpet or my own flute. I really believe in everything that we do, and the people that we work with, the comedians that we have on Get Happy are so creative, they're so funny, they're so talented, and they've just started out with what they're doing, and I love seeing that grow. I love seeing that expand. We've got some other new shows in development. We've got one about crowdfunders, which I'm very excited about, which I'm going to be hosting, and we've got another one which is a legal podcast, which is the most dry, boring thing in the world, but we've got a good spin on it. It's going to be great. But the problem that we have with all of this is that the pool of listeners that we have available to it is so small. And I mean, there's no reason why the American audience can't come and listen to our show. By the way, www.abruptaudio.com, where you'll find a full list of them all. But obviously, there's something different. So that challenge for me now, I suppose it's the challenge for everyone, is they want to get more listeners to their show. But I'm looking at a slightly different perspective about how do we get more people overall engaged in podcasting. And I think the way to do that is, if you think about everybody that's here now, if everybody at this conference were able to go home and just meet one person a week and kind of go, hey, you should listen to a podcast, and not just go listen to my podcast, but I've come back from this and I kind of go, hey, there's this multimedia ninja podcast which is great, it'd be perfect for you. Because the thing is, the selfish ego goes, listen to my podcast, up my figures. But I think it's going to be a great thing for all of us if just more people are listening to podcasts. And like we're here, part of the networking is not just about building our reputation, it's connecting other people. It's kind of going, I love what you're doing, and you should speak to this guy because at the very least he'd be a great guest on your show.
Right.
Or you could do something exciting together.
Right.
And it's that same kind of, we've got to do that. We're so good at doing that with each other. We need to do that with the audience and the prospective audience as well, because there's nothing like a personal connection to listen to a podcast and a motivation to do that. Because you literally go, that person was really nice. I'm going to, they bought me a coffee, or we had a nice 10 minutes. I'm going to have a listen to their show.
And so that leads me to what I did not want to forget, which is where abruptaudio.com is where you can find Ant's network of podcasts, actually. And is there anything else you would want people to know or to go check out, or your social links or anything like that?
So you'll find us on Instagram, Twitter at Abrupt Audio. Instagram, we're at Abrupt_audio, and we're quite busy on there. One of the things we do, which is a real... And my partner Chris will tell you, I was so resistant to this at first, was we started blogging. And he was like, we should blog. And I was like, dude, I think that's a really old hat. I don't think I don't really blog. And he's like, no, come on, we should do it. So, and what I've learned with Chris is, I've learned to trust him. So even if I don't like something, and that's important in a business relationship, even if part of me is resistant to it, I have that trust and faith in him, so I'll go with it. And honestly, doing the blog has been the best thing for us because it's kept us on point and it's kept us sharp. So we react to things that are happening. So the Apple changes that are coming through. So we've looked at that and what we think's happening and done a quick explanation for people there. We'll do a review every week, and it's not just going, oh, the show's great, I love it. We'll go. So we'll listen to the Multimedia Ninja show, and we'll listen to it and we'll go, this show is great because. Now it's not just because we like him and he's funny, but that can be part of it. But maybe it's an aspect of your creativity, maybe it's your sense of humor, maybe it's just the way you interact with the guests. And then we say, we then use that as a lesson for people. So we say, look, if you're doing an interview podcast, give this guy a listen and try and figure out how he gets those answers out of people, and because that will be great for you.
Right.
So...
awesome. Yeah, and the blog is at abruptaudio.com?
You'll find the blog at abruptaudio.com, and we actually, our How to Podcast is an audio version of the blog, but it's like with added extras. We're also on Alexa as well. If you go to the Skills Store, we've started putting our podcasts on there so you can get them in your daily news briefing. So on the left side's on there, and we have a mini version of the How to Podcast on there. So it's like if you want a daily podcast tip, so we do 28 a month, so each day there's just 1 minute. So if you come down, you have your coffee, say, Alexa, give me my news briefing, it's there.
So I will have links to all of this on the show notes, and I want to thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And I'll get all those links down there. Ladies and gentlemen of the virtual studio audience, please give it up for Ant McGinley. Well, that just about wraps it up for this episode of The Multimedia Ninja. I hope you'll come back next week and bring your friends. Don't forget, you can subscribe to The Multimedia Ninja and see all kind of good stuff at themultimedianinja.com. And I'll just get the heck out of here because we got to go attend some meetings and stuff, but do some great work this week, and we'll see you next time. Adios.
Ciao.